So, Joaquin, you mentioned the coup against Mr. Donald Trump. So, could you please tell me more about the coup? Will it be like, will it be a civil war 2.0 in the United States, or will it be, or is it going? I mean, is it going to be something like a color revolution, like in Ukraine or in Georgia, or so? What is it? What is it going to be?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, you've already seen elements of color revolution already.
Yeah,
The BLM Antifa
with
and the
George
militia
Floyd.
movement
Yeah,
response, the young gentleman in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and
yeah,
those
yeah,
events. This
and the
is all
Proud
color
Boys.
revolution
Yeah.
events. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The particular forms that it takes are actually described in the Transition Integrity Project. Guys, I want you to know something.
Yeah.
Now, there are people, this is YouTube, and I
Yeah.
like how what a little tiny distant corner of the YouTube this is. That's why I roll out like the real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to have 50,000 views on this and have your channel, you know, exploded and stuff. I'm radioactive, like on social media. All my accounts are banned. So I'm, you know, the aim of this information war that we're doing together here against the elites is
Well, if they
that,
ban my, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I just want to say this. If they ban my this YouTube channel, I'll back up all. I'm backing up all my videos, and I'm going to create another one and upload it. In fact, I
right,
have a reserved channel. But if they ban me again, I will move to BitChute or
right, of course.
yeah,
No, that's why people should download these, mirror them, and you've
yeah.
never complained when people mirror your videos because, you know, people
Never.
should hit up,
Yeah, it's
your
use
Patreon.
them, use them.
People should hit up your PayPal and your Patreon, but we're not worried about YouTube advertising or view counts on this because
My
this
channel
is
is
a
demonetized long time
yeah,
ago.
yeah, of course. We just need a word of mouth campaign that people can get some, you know,
Yeah.
some 0 point information here and then word of mouth and other, you know, to get it out other places. And there are people similar to myself who are saying
Yeah.
similar things.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, you can cross-reference the things that I'm saying against reality, and everything is bona fides here, okay?
Yeah.
So
And I'm
now,
not complaining when people mirror my videos. Just download them, use them,
yeah,
spread.
right.
Yeah.
The coup against Donald Trump is not against Donald Trump. Okay, he's just standing in the way. The coup is
Yeah.
against constitutional and republican forms of government. Okay. The coup is long time planned. See,
Yeah.
Donald Trump was not supposed to win the election because they used election fraud in 2016. They just didn't use enough of it. In reality, in 2016, he also won the popular vote, and he got way more states and way more electors than was necessary for him to actually be, you know, inaugurated. And that's probably what's going to happen this time too. They're only going to contest strategically where he needs to win, and I believe he will win. But he's up against global finance capital.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not about Hillary Clinton. She's just the high priestess witch in one of the cults that manages upper middle management in the United States. He has had to sell the possibility of his project as being an alternate plan that global finance capital can use. And he has had to do things, but that's been to avoid assassination or to give any chance at all. But in truth, you can see that the Transition Integrity Project, which was written about in the New York Times, the PDF is available online, Transition Integrity Project, read the PDF. Okay, this is a war game, okay, in which John Podesta plays the role of Joe Biden. So that's, for many people, that's all you need to know, but for people who like, you know, more, you know, depth, this is what we're now going to provide. So it provides 3 or 4 scenarios, one which, in the ones that Trump wins, is what we're interested in. Joe Biden refuses to concede. And we're actually in that scenario because actually we're going to find soon that Georgia's going to flip, Pennsylvania's going to flip, possibly Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, game over. They're going to go beyond the December 14th date Okay, we know that. The only constitutional hard-coded date is January 20th, I think. December 8th and 14th are from a 1948 piece of federal legislation, but it does not supersede the Constitution. This is just details.
Yeah.
The coup is laid out in the Transition Integrity Project. Okay, why? So we know that the Supreme Court, by itself, without interference, would find that Trump was right in different ways of approaching the courts, different types of, but he will prevail in the courts. However, liberals on the court,
Yeah.
or in general judges, being concerned with the consequences of Trump winning, is a threat, which is detailed. It is a threat in the Transition Integrity Project that California, Washington, and Oregon are going to secede. Joe Biden tells them to secede. He tells them to secede openly in the project. They're going to call that state Cascadia.
Cascadia.
That's what it's called in the project.
Like Cascadia is an alliance of California, Oregon, and Washington.
Correct. Correct.
So are they going to be like all these three states? Are they going to be unified in one state or?
Yes.
Wow.
Breaking away from the United States as a threat, so that the Supreme Court is pressured to go like, well, Trump is right, but he's not. Okay. So by a strict interpretation of the Constitution and past precedents, called stare decisis in Latin, Trump will win. Okay, but in liberal jurisprudence, they apply another principle, not just on past precedent, or more correctly, the literal interpretation of the Constitution. They do what's called balancing. This is how some of the civil rights legislation was passed through the courts in the 1960s. Balancing is when you weigh the social reaction and broader concepts like the legitimacy of the courts or the legitimacy of the republic. So if they're holding a gun to the court's head saying, well, if you rule in Trump's favor, and if he's inaugurated, is a Trump win scenario, then we're going to tell these states to secede, creating a constitutional crisis, an economic crisis. California by itself makes up 15% of the federal budget. Now, people might think, oh, fuck 15%. Well, no. Bill Gates was able to control the World Health Organization by providing only 10% of the budget for the World Health Organization. Losing anyone who's worked in the public sector or done, labor union negotiating like I have, where you have to deal with, let's say, Title IX provisions, and that Title IX to the budget for public schools, if they violate Title IX, they lose that funding. Sometimes that funding's only 5 or 10%. The programs can't exist without that margin. The federal budget completely implodes without 15%. And then you add Washington and Oregon, that's another 7%, let's say. So without that 22%, okay, of the budget, and then you have a constitutional crisis, a military crisis, because the governors claim control over the National Guard. The governors are the executive branch of each state, and each state has a National Guard. That's why you heard such already rumblings around putting down the Antifa BLM riots. To the National Guard. Who controls the National Guard already came up. Okay. All these pieces will come together for you if you listen.
Yeah.
But listen good.
Yeah, and the National Guard, like in many states where governors are Democrats, they control the National Guard, and they say just National Guard. They order to not interfere.
Well, yeah, and in the case of secession, the National Guard becomes the beginnings of the military of these. But guys, don't think just in terms of military terms. The information war, there's biological warfare going on, lockdown from the beer bug. All these things are factors. And people are going, oh, but the military has this, and National Guard are just like guys on the weekend with, like 100-year-old rifles. Like, no, that's not how it works. The police departments have been militarized, and they all fall within the states. And I mean, there are tanks and everything. Like, and that's only part of it because the China factor. And California has tremendous ties with China. We're talking about Feinstein, Pelosi, among two of the country's largest Chinatowns are in San Francisco and Los Angeles. And it's not just Chinatown, but it's not just the immigrant community. It's not about Chinese people, but it just shows that there's Chinese banks and there's a strong economic ties between mainland China, not like Hong Kong, Taiwan and stuff like that, but mainland China and California. And that will allow them to create their own currency and everything.
Yeah.
But this is not the point. The point is that it creates a constitution. That's actually a bluff in many ways, to create a constitutional crisis. And it's even one which in their own war game, Trump prevails there. But he prevails as the consequence of an agreement that that Cascadia stays in the Union, but that California is divided into 5 states, producing 10 more senators, and a new census reflective of the whole population, including undocumenteds who will become full citizens, and there will be a new census with a greater population of over 60 million or something like this of the 3 states combined.
Wow.
Maybe 50 million, 60 million, and 5 states, which increases the number of senators by 8, because it's 4 new states out of 1 state. So it's 5 states, so it's 4 new states, so that's 8 new senators. That will all be Democrats. That will change the balance of the Senate. So this goes back to understanding the American Civil War and the decades before, like the Missouri Compromise and things like that. So to prevent a civil war, you're going to have a Missouri Compromise 2.0, let's say. Does that make sense? So
yeah, that does.
So then the other concession that they're going to push on Trump after he wins, but there's this, Civil War scenario or secession scenario, is that they make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. a state as well. Okay. So that's, 4 more senators right there, plus Puerto Rico and its population, that's census, so that's congressmen, right? Census equals Congress. So that's both houses. Increase in Democrats by a lot. Then they change the Supreme Court so that you have as many as 24 justices who are rotating between the upper courts and lower courts in a kind of a circuit system, and they term out after a number of years. So term limits on Supreme Court. And stacking the court, they're going to increase the size of the Supreme Court almost 3-fold, like 2.5 times, 2.7 times, something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's actually the goal. Okay. So now the Supreme Court should know that there's a threat against, the Supreme Court doesn't want to create constitutional crises. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Okay. As a guiding principle, but they can rule however they want. They're there for life. Okay. So unless she's a sleeper, the strongest person on the court is Barrett, the newest one.
ACB.
ACB.
Yeah.
Because she's a member of the Opus Dei.
Yeah. You told us.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. With Scalia. Scalia
Yeah,
was murdered.
Scalia,
He knows
yes.
about that.
Yeah,
Scalia was murdered to create a vacancy for Clinton to fill, but then Clinton didn't win. She wasn't supposed to lose. Trump got 3. That was already the first reversal. We should already know that there's a plan.
Yeah.
Based upon the events of the murder of Scalia and that Trump appointed 3 of the 9 Supreme Court justices, they're saying that in so doing that Trump has stacked the courts, even though he's done everything by his obligations, not only his rights, but rights and obligations are a two-sided coin. You don't have rights that aren't commensurate with obligations and vice versa. You can't have an obligation that you don't have a right to fulfill. It's not Trump exercising whim or tyranny. This is his obligation to fill those 3 spots, and he did.
Yeah.
So, but that's not good enough, because they're still confronted with California seceding. That's what we're talking about now. So now that catches you up with the Transition Integrity Project, the plan that they have to pressure the courts to either not have Trump win, or if he does win, and then you have this scenario, they have their backup plan, which is the real goal, because they know that the court is stacked against them.
Yeah.
Okay, does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
they really want to get these concessions. I mean, or if Joe Biden gets in, they also have that. They can get, Joe Biden can stack the courts right away. They can make the changes right away.
Mhm.
They don't need an agreement. They don't need an agreement with Trump. But they're threatening a forced outcome of an agreement that Trump stays in office, but that the Senate becomes more Democrat. There's more senators. There's 52 states, right? 52 states. What is that? 104 senators, and way more congressmen, especially with Puerto Rico's population now being, consensus-based seats in the Congress from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Okay. So the unfortunate thing is that there's a good case for Puerto Rico to be a state, and there's a good case for California to be broken up into 5 states, but not when you're using it as ammunition in a civil war. That's just right. That's part of the coup that's underway.
Yeah.
So now we have what happened with General Flynn. On a week ago, he bought a full-page ad in the Washington Times. Okay?
Yeah.
The Washington Times ad says Trump needs to suspend the Constitution, declare martial law,
Yeah.
and rehold the elections under military watch. Only the military will carry out the elections.
Oh.
And there needs to be a military coup. Trump needs to lead a military coup. Suspend the Constitution temporarily. Have a transition.
Yeah.
Reset the nonsense. Arrest the coup plotters. These are all things that Abraham Lincoln did already, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Abraham Lincoln had the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court arrested, by the way. People don't always know these things.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
So you see, speaking of Joe Biden and justices and women, so what can you tell us about Kamala Harris, her past as a general attorney of California?
Okay.
The pedophile.
Segue.
Yeah, the pedophile priest controversy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Look.
Yeah.
In order to inspire the BLM Antifa army as part of this secession coup scenario,
Yeah.
no one's excited about Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris, a black woman,
Yeah.
she's questionably a woman, definitely not black. Not
Well,
by
she's
Jamaican
Indian.
laws.
She's
not black by Jamaican laws. She's under the British concept, she's colored, not black. British laws, South Africa and the colonies, a 1/2 or 1/4 mulatto is not black. They're called colored. Okay, so she's a colored woman, but she's not black. Her father is not black on his birth certificate in Jamaica because he's, of mixed descent.
Yeah.
Okay, but his wealth and his property comes from the line of his family that were slave owners.
Yes, so she's actually a slave owner.
She's actually descended from slave owners.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. But she tried to tell everyone that she descended from slaves, but in reality...
No, right, the opposite. She descended from slave
owners
in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Okay, and then her mother's just from India.
Yeah.
Because of the genetics of that, she even looks a little bit more African American than her father, because there's some interesting genetics in India that sometimes people from India can look like they have African, or it can unlock some genes in funny ways. We won't get into that, but let's look at the photographs, okay?
Let's not get into that, okay?
Just look for yourself.
Yeah.
Look at her mom, look at her dad, you'll see. Her parents are basically, it's like a white guy who's mulatto and an Indian woman, okay? okay?
Yeah.
But there's, like I said, that's very important because that's the same with Obama. He's also not the descendant of chattel slaves. There's like something very, like I have a tremendous, like my heart is with the descendants of chattel slaves. Like you have to understand, like I'm all about John Brown, okay? Like I'm all against slavery. I'm all against the South shall rise. I'm just to be clear, none of this neo-Confederate alt-right bullshit over here. I know my American history and I know what's right. Slavery is not the natural condition of man.
Absolutely
I don't care if you're
not.
black, white, yellow, brown, purple. Okay, it is not. And the Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was one of the single greatest things to take place in the United States.
I agree.
By the way, but to do that, he had to arrest fake news journalists. He had to order the arrest of senators and congressmen. And the Supreme Court ruled that what he did was unconstitutional, and he ordered the arrest of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who was arrested and spent time in jail as a consequence. This is real stuff. That's the crisis that we're in right now. Right now. Okay. Kamala Harris is actually going to be the candidate. There are several instances already on tape in public and under Joe Biden's like office of the president-elect, where he's saying that, you know what, like if I'm on a different program from Kamala, like I was with Obama, let's say, I would fake an illness and step down. He said that I will fake an illness. Like, guys, look at this. Look on BitChute. You'll find this. Like, use DuckDuckGo. Use those words. You'll find it.
Yeah.
You know, do fucking diligence, like I say. I'm not making things up at all. He said I will step down if there's disagreement. Like with Obama, like with Kamala.
Yeah.
I will fake an illness. Those are his words, not mine. I will fake an illness and step down. Why? Because Kamala is supposed to, you know, inspire the army in this civil conflict. It's supposed to be like the evil, rich white man against the, you know, black and woman of the, you know, Democrats who pretend to be for the people. You know, maybe they were 80 years ago, you know, but they've like long spent that bullshit. I mean, especially with the rise of Clinton. So that hasn't been the case since the end of the 90s.
Oh.
You know, there was a great presidential candidate in the 1988 race that George Bush won. In the preliminary Democrats against Dukakis was Jesse Jackson. And Jesse Jackson was a great candidate with a great program. Donald Trump financed that candidate. Donald Trump gave big-time money
to that candidate, to his
the
campaign.
Last great Labor Democrat candidate in the form of Jesse Jackson in 1988. But those were the period of time that the Democrat Party became the party of neoliberalism and globalism. And that's what saw the rise of Bill Clinton and George Soros. All came to prominence. They were involved in funding with the Pope the Solidarność movement in Poland, right, for the counter-revolution in Poland, right, the politics of the Cold War and Moscow Station and the rise of Yeltsin and Clinton and Yeltsin on the stage together and Yeltsin's drunk and Clinton's laughing. That began with the rise of
fucking. It was so. It was just such an embarrassment. I'm sorry, but I can't hold my emotion. It was such an embarrassment for Russia, for me as a Russian, not just fuck patriot, just for Russian citizens. For me, it was such an embarrassment, man.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, Obama was like that embarrassment for us. Maybe George Bush a little bit more, but Obama was a bigger liar than Bush even. Well, no, Bush with the 9/11 thing. Bush and Obama probably go down as the two worst presidents, you know, alongside Clinton. Even Nixon was not as bad as, I mean, this is very bad stuff with Obama and Bush. There's a problem though. So let's get into this Kamala thing. Okay. Some years ago, when she was the state attorney general
in California,
a conspiracy arose, okay, where there was arrests actually made. I think the FBI, before Comey, the FBI actually figured it out when they were still kind of doing their job a little bit, and they busted a ring under impersonating police officers. It was called like the Masonic Fraternal Police Order. It's kind of, you know, there's the Fraternal Order of Police, which is actually like the police officers union, which I'm not a big fan of. They have a lot of deep state operatives. They're the ones been pushing for the militarization of the police, creating a big cleavage between peoplehood and police officers, and really creating a lot of distrust, which is part of color revolution scenarios. But it's also about creating police as a special category of guardians that have privileges like COVID pass or something like that. So the laws of lockdown won't apply to them. But that's very dangerous stuff. We'll talk about that some other time if it's that interesting. But you get the idea. So she actually had a criminal ring involved in potentially human trafficking, pedophilia, things like this. She was also involved in the state not making charges against cases in California with pedophilia and child abduction. For example, in Trump's first or second year, the biggest bust of the pedophilia ring was in California. And this was all stuff that Kamala Harris had on her desk and refused to prosecute. There was something like 400 and something arrests made in connection with this in 2017 or something like 2018, 2017. You guys can like Google that shit up.
Yeah.
I might be wrong on a few numbers or the year, but that's the general idea. I'm trying to be as close to, you know, precision as possible here because I understand that the integrity of this info drop relies on it.
Yeah.
But the Masonic Order of Police, it's called something else, guys. It's very similar to these words. I'm, you know, going off pure memory here, and I haven't looked at the story in 3-4 months since I wrote about it. And many other things have happened, you know, in between. But it's like the Masonic Order of Police, let's call it. And it was like the main chiefs of it were indicted on impersonating police officers. But the ranks of it were actually actual police chiefs. It's very sad in a way. It's very sad in a way, Yuri, because, you know, black people in America, there's been a lot of bad criminal justice reform that happened under Joe Biden's Senate proposals, the Predator legislation that follows on very terrible ideas from policing that go back to the 1950s, which saw black youth as being irredeemably irreformable. It was the idea that you could identify a future criminal even when they're 13 years old. So that's why, like, black kids in California might get, you know, shoplifting, and you might have a minimum sentence of community service or a maximum sentence of 5 years. And based on this racist theory of what is it called? You know, natural born predators.
Yeah.
Which happen to be black people. Okay, that was the legislation that Trump reversed, by the way, with Kanye West, and actually Kardashian, you know, actually helped propose this and sell this through social media, but the liberal media forgot that it's Trump that has cut against this natural-born predator legislation. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were part of this. Joe Biden was part of this. Okay, the Democrat Party is a plantation, but that's, I don't want to go rhetoric, but the facts here are that Kamala Harris had an organization of police chiefs, which are exactly in those cities where the BLM Antifa riots occurred and were unchecked, where the mayors refused and the police chiefs refused to do things. And what was sad about that, that's where I was, is that you see, like, black people have been trying to find ways to have rights equal to the rest. They've been second-class citizens. Like, look, the civil rights legislation that ended the two-tier system, Jim Crow, which also existed in northern cities de facto because of segregation and stuff, was ended in the 60s. Okay, now maybe to some of your viewers born in like 2000 or 1995 or something, that sounds like forever ago. It wasn't. I was born in 1978. Like, when I was in grade school, you don't overcome the legacy of slavery from the 1600s, okay, for the next 350 years.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't overcome the legacy of slavery for 350 years, ending with the Jim Crow. It did not end with the Civil War. You had radical Reconstruction briefly, but then you had the reversal of Reconstruction and the institution of Jim Crow. It wasn't until the 1960s that the KKK was broken up, that separate but equal was overruled in the Supreme Court. There was like, there was different ones. There was like Brown v. Board of Education. Okay. So what some black people, and I think rightfully, were like, we need our own fraternal order of black police officers. Like, because we want to be doing what's right. Okay. But so they used what's called Afrocentric symbology. So they use like Egyptology and occult rituals that are Masonic, because Masonry takes like some concept of Islamic and Egyptian, like pre-Islamic Egypt, and mixed with Greek and other occult practices, and kind of, it's how like Western Europeans in the 17 and 1800s understood the Orient. It's kind of like a syncretic fumble jumble, not quite accurate, of like Egyptian stuff with Islamic stuff and Indian Hindu stuff all mixed into one, with Greek and Roman stuff all mixed into one, like neo-occultism. You even have like Aleister Crowley and the Ordo Templi Orientis, that. Okay, but you just understand. So this police concept of a police conspiracy of black people, it was a lot like how the Irish had to become police officers. That's where they learned it from. Like, the Irish were not considered white Europeans.
Although they are.
Well, in some sense, I'm saying by the American, like, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant criteria, they were Paddy's mix, and they were Catholic. So that's like 3 strikes, you're out. You're not white. You're Catholic. You're Irish. Like, the Irish are the niggers of Europe. You might want to edit that, but that was the idea. That's not my concept. I'm saying we're being critical of how the Irish were treated. They were sharecroppers in the South. When slavery was abolished, they brought in Irish people.
Sorry, you have intrigued me now. If Irish are not white by their standards, then I'm even afraid to ask you. So, who are Russians by their standards?
Oh no, Russians are called semi-Asiatic Mongol subversives.
So it's even lower than the Irish.
At least the Irish are servile.
But the Russians are... Oh.
The Russians are Chinese with blue eyes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Look, by the 1950s or the 1960s, the Irish and the Italians were granted whitehood.
Yeah.
In American, and same with Slavic Americans, mostly Polish. The Poles, the Irish, the Greeks, and the Italians became considered white in American culture by the 1950s and 1960s. This was considered like the right thing to do. So, but the Irish had since the 1800s been infiltrating police forces, and most of the Irish were police, so it's very hard to oppress the Irish with police if the Irish are the police. Okay, so the foundations of Kamala Harris's Masonic order of, police or whatever is based in this good idea. The problem is that psychological operations and deep things can subvert these things. Can subvert, like, the idea that Black Lives Matter is not a bad idea on the face of it, within the subcategory of the idea that all lives matter. As a subcategory, I mean, Black Lives Matter because all lives matter. That's the point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they subvert it to be like black against white. Okay, and this fraternal Masonic order of police was using a conspiracy of these mayors. So back to our story was that they were actually busted in California. Her chief assistant was one of the people that was prosecuted. The other guy, this other black guy, who was like the the face of the leadership. She was the real ringleader. But this other black guy who was like the face of it, he had like all this Egyptological stuff and rings and stuff, like an occult group. You know, like Afrocentrism, like Egyptians were black and stuff like that. That's part of their ideology. Egyptians were black, everything was created. So it's actually like an offshoot, like similar to the stuff happening from the time of the original Nation of Islam, of Afrocentrism, of Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
But I'm throwing these words in here as context, not because, like, Nation of Islam is doing good things, okay? This is something that has been hijacked, this Masonic Order of Police thing has been hijacked or infiltrated by the deep state. And they've made it from a good idea following the Irish strategy of infiltrating the police into an occult group that has very negative consequences that we're seeing right now. And so when they were persecuted, Kamala Harris, the one guy, he like died and he had a heart attack, suddenly had a heart attack. And then her chief of staff, who was a member and was accused, she pardoned him. She exonerated him, dropped the charges. That was it. She dropped the charges. So her hands are all over that. She is chiefly tied into the leadership of Black Lives Matter. They share an occult affinity. Okay, so at the historically black universities, it's called the HBCUs, Historically Black Colleges and Universities, okay? We tend to focus on the social studies department, and they teach some good things and some divisive things, a mix. Originally, they were teaching good things, then they introduced what's called critical race theory, very bad things. Very bad things. But in the religious studies department, people don't focus on. In the religious studies department, they focus on both pre-Columbian religions and African religions. Syncretic religions, you know, hoodoo, voodoo. Okay. Afro-Caribbean syncretic religions of slaves. Okay. So their primary godhead, one of their primary godheads in their pantheon is named Ogu. This is an African god from the historic French colonies in West Africa. He is a prominent god in the pantheon. He's closest to Mars in the Roman pantheon, but he's also associated with revenge and justice and police. He's actually the god of police in West Africa, in occult practices, and he's the god of police in like Haiti, like you know, in the syncretic Catholicism, in the Caribbean, you know, in the French, in Louisiana, and Creole country, you have this as well. They call him Oju Ferre, or Oju Ferre. So now spiritually, Yuri, this is very important to distinguish. Now, Oju is a good god, originally, who in the Christian pantheon of saints, or angelology, is associated with Saint Michael. Your guests will know, your viewers will know who we're talking about. It's not Saint Michael, it's Saint... it's one of the saints who's an angel. One of the angel saints. Okay. So this is important spiritually, because there's a difference between worshiping Satan and worshiping God. Okay. Justice and revenge seem like very similar. But they're like twins, but there's like a good twin and the evil twin. Justice is with God, and revenge
is with the devil.
That's right. Revenge is never good. Revenge will suck you in, suck you dry. It'll destroy you, like Captain Ahab. You know, you'll like Moby Dick. Okay, that destroyed Captain Ahab. It devoured him. He was consumed by it. He was possessed by the entity of revenge. It's an entity. It's a real existing entity. It exists up there. It can be materialized. You understand? Materialized.
Yeah.
In their occult ritual, from the HBCUs, in the religious studies departments, they have like their students and they do stuff off campus and they do seances and rituals, occult practices with black students, and they're teaching them that you get justice through revenge. That's why you see all this violence is, you know, tapping into, you know, the activists in the street don't know this is what's going on. They're just being compelled into random violence, you see, because revenge goes that way. You see, with revenge, everything is justifiable. Revenge does not justify, sorry. It allows for anything. Justice is something else. Justice is like only the guilty party. There's no such thing as collective guilt. You have collective revenge. You have collective punishment, but there's no collective justice. There's no collective justice. Justice is an individual case by case. Okay, one man stands, am I, you know, guilty or innocent? Justice is the individual. Revenge allows anything to happen in the name of justice, but it's a false god parading as justice, known as revenge. That's the idea. It's a demiurgic concept of justice. That is the Masonic Order of Police, or whatever it's called. That's Kamala Harris. That's the HBCU's religious studies departments, some professors, not all, but, you know. Now what they are able to do is hold these rituals. So you have a police killing. Now you've heard already that a large number, I don't know the statistics, but it's like as many or close to as many of killings of innocent, or, you know, maybe not innocent black people are done by black police officers. Okay, these are considered sacrifices, human sacrifices. And then after these killings, it would make sense, based upon that blood, they have a blood ritual, and they can manifest, it looks like dark clouds coming in from the corners of rooms and stuff like that, okay? And they can manifest an entity, and these entities lie. They lie to you. They may say, oh, I'm your relative, I'm a ghost of your grandfather, or I'm your friend, okay? Because they lie, they're liars.
They're liars.
You know, it's based in lies.
Yeah.
Any entity that you can manifest that appears in a human form in front of you from like a dark mist that emanates from the shadows of a room, and then you can create like a circle or ring, and then, you know, using incantations and blood sacrifice and sperm and milk, like Marina Abramovich, you can get these to manifest as a being in the room, and like that's the most powerful magical thing I've ever seen. Like, to most people who people who don't have a direct connection to God, which may manifest as like little stars in the sky, and you experience not as like power and revenge and ego, but as humility and childlikeness and smallness, you know, before, you know, the grand eminence of creation in the universe. This is the opposite. This is like, I'm getting power. This is like the ninth gate, when the guy like you know, sets himself on fire, and right, Johnny Depp, the ninth gate. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is all real stuff. This is all what's going on. This is what's been revealed in 2020, is that this is a spiritual war between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. People who might have begun with bad intentions can be summoned and possessed by the light to do the good things, like a billionaire real estate developer from New York. And people who might have thought they were doing the good things can be consumed with hatred.
Yeah.
Like what we're seeing. So you have to judge the tree by its fruits, not by what people have come to call the tree. You have to judge the tree by the fruits that it bears.
Yeah.
That's what's going on here. That's Kamala Harris. The plan is that in order for this scenario to work out, Joe Biden fakes an illness, like he said he would. Like, they're not lying about this. And I'll tell you why they're not lying about it as well. It's not only to like frighten the courts to rule against Trump. Not about Trump, it's about us.
Yeah.
But in fact, it is to manifest this darkness to create starvation, war, and chaos, which this entity thrives off of it. It's consuming the planet in panic and fear. But I'm here to tell you that it is powerless in the face of faith. Like, just like we know that the power of government derives from the people who consent to be governed, that's the Platonic secular version of a greater spiritual truth. You know, we are all powerful beings that are here for a purpose, you know, in service of creating the kingdom of heaven, and involved in a process called catechon, to hold back the end times until the forces of alignment are correct. Because the end times before it's correct is not the end times of the kingdom of heaven, but it's the destruction of humanity and the defeat of the project of humanity and God.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Kamala Harris is representing right now. She will attempt to be the president. That is the plan. It's not for Joe Biden. It is for Kamala Harris.
That's why I asked you about her. That Joe Biden is old. That she, no matter if he falls ill, like if he genuinely falls ill or he fakes illness,
yeah.
Kamala is going to be the replacement.
Yeah, look, that's exactly right. But you can look at people, and you can see how they live their lives. You can see, like, you have, like, you yourself, like, you are an innocent soul, Yudi. I love you. You are an innocent soul. You love your mom. You believe in God. You're a patriot. Like, you know, I can see. I know you can defend yourself. I know you're a strong guy. But all of your ideas about defense are defensive. All your ideas about violence are defensive.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen. Force of evil in the world is weak. But people who are dedicated to evil spend their whole lives manipulating and maneuvering to get to the top of institutions, to get to the top of structures, to get to the top of churches, the top of governments, and so forth. Evil attracts that. Okay, power attracts evil. Good people are not attracted to power. They're not attracted to money. We all are sinners. We all like to have a little power. We all like to have a little money. We're all a little bit sinful. But we live in the world, this fallen world.
Yeah.
But we're not inherently attracted to it. We don't sacrifice family, friends, loved ones in pursuit of it. Like, we're happy when it comes our way. We might work a little harder. Oh, we made a good deal.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have some sins to pay for, but we're not like the problem in the world unless we make ourselves the problem in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So this is a fundamental spiritual battle that's going on, and good people are most people, and they come together at the end. But the story's already written, you know, so you can get on the right side of this. Many religious traditions have this. It's not, I'm not saying, oh, everyone's got to become a Christian, everyone's got to become a Muslim. Like, there's good Muslims and bad Muslims. There's, you know,
good Christians, bad Christians, like...
Good Christians, bad Christians.
Good Hindus, bad
Hindus.
Yeah.
Say that?
Yeah. I said good Hindus, bad Hindus, yeah.
Good Hindus, bad Hindus. Yeah, look, it's about people, with who you are.
Yeah.
So, that is the Kamala Harris story. I'm from California. We know who she is.
Yeah.
When she was put in, when she became like a senator, they're like, oh, this is the first Indian American woman senator.
Yeah.
They didn't say she wasn't, like, that was not her brand back then. Then they started rolling her out in front of like Berkeley students and UCLA students. Like, she's some real progressive and all this stuff. Man, as the Attorney General in California, she persecuted and prosecuted mostly poor people.
Yeah.
And served the interests of powerful corporations. I mean, all the crimes that from Silicon Valley, and because that's like, you know, big tech, they call it big tech, but it's, you know, social media.
Yeah.
That's all in California.
Yeah, Twitter, so Facebook, YouTube. Yeah.
That's part of this separating from the justice system in the United States. They want exemptions, they want pardons, they want, you know, like Jack Dorsey and Zuckerberg are like shitting bricks these days. They see that their whole plan is coming undone and they don't understand why. because they're coming from a managerial paradigm of the 20th century, like we were talking about in the last piece about, you know, the managerial revolution, James Burnham, Mac Shackman, Fordism, Taylorism. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't understand, like, why are the Dominion employees coming out against Dominion and giving testimony that the vote was stolen? Because they treat people like shit. They're waiting for the moment to rebel. They're waiting for the moment to, like, be like, fuck you, Dominion bosses, Zuckerberg. Like, yeah, I worked for you. You were paying me $45,000 a year now, and then we got a budget cut. Now you're paying me $32,000 a year, and every week I get an email saying I could be fired any minute. I'm losing my mortgage. You know, my husband left me. My kids are smoking crack. You see, like, I cannot wait to, like, you know, see justice happen to you. But they're in their own echo chamber. Yeah. They think, oh, we got this plan. We're gonna go like this. Okay, we got it sealed up. It's out. You know, it's just like their plan is being foiled. We're seeing it right now in real time. Like, look, Trump, I think, look, bad things can happen. Yeah. I have Trump at 85% to win. 15% is like Russian roulette. You know, the 6 chambers, so 1/6 is 15%. You know, I mean, people die in Russian roulette. Things that have a 15% chance of happening happen all the time. You know, Donald Trump might lose, but when I say 85% Donald Trump, that's broken up. Like, he might win by these audits. He might win through the legislature, through what's called a contingent election, okay, where the congressional committees are the ones that select the president in one case, or if the legislatures nominate their own slate of electors and you have a regular electoral college vote. Those are 2 methods right there alone. And, you know, each of those methods can arrive by 2 or 3 different paths within those. There are 20 different scenarios based on the state electors by which Trump can still win. 20 different scenarios. Like, has Georgia but not Pennsylvania, has Wisconsin and Michigan but doesn't have Pennsylvania, has Arizona and has Nevada but doesn't have Georgia but has Wisconsin. There's like, when you do all those on the 270 to win maps, I did these. There's like 20 different scenarios that Trump can win by electors. Okay, the date is not December 8th or December 14th or December 23rd. The only constitutional date is January, what, 20th, something like that?
20th,
inauguration date. Yeah, okay, that's the only hard-coded date. Okay, there's a 1948 legislation which sets up the safe harbor date and then the electors' meeting date. But that meeting date of the 14th is not confirmed until the 23rd, actually. And then but the inauguration is actually by the date that things have to be settled. If not settled by then it's the articles in the Constitution which see Nancy Pelosi temporarily acting. That's a catastrophe. Yeah. So,
Joaquin, was speaking about Kamala and rich and persecuting the poor and sparing the rich. Could you please tell me more about the pedophile priests controversy with Kamala and Catholic priests?
Yeah, well, just that she worked with the Vatican. She worked with Pope Francis.
Yeah. Really?
To make sure.
She did? Yeah.
Yeah.
To make sure what?
To make sure that cases in California were not prosecuted criminally.
Oh.
See, what they do look, good Catholics are going to save the day. Good Catholics are going to save the day. Don't get me wrong. This is not an anti-Catholic. Good Catholics are going to save the day. We're talking about Vatican II, Pope Francis. Okay, the coup that took place in the Vatican over a period of the last 45 years. Yeah. Okay, integrating the Vatican into NATO structures. Okay.
And John Paul...
I have to say, you have idiot charlatans. You have idiot charlatans like Gorka, whose doctoral degree is fraudulent. You know, who uses the fact that he's 6'5" and has a Hungarian-British accent that Americans only hear the British and don't hear the Hungarian. Who says, oh, John Paul II was the greatest pope and blah, 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 and he loved Solidarność. And no, that was part of the NATO plan to destroy Russia.
So John Paul II was a fucking CIA or something agent.
Yep.
And Solidarność was a CIA movement, or America's...
Yeah, fake labor movement,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So the sickness in the church has been going on for a long time. But, I mean, it goes back from before Vatican II. Like, you couldn't have had Vatican II without a growing cancer in the church for a long time. But the laity and the different organizations, like, and even the organizations are split. You have bad side of Opus Dei, good side of Opus Dei, or even more openly secular organizations like Knights of Columbus. You have, like, the good side of Knights of Columbus, the bad side of Knights of Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have the Dominicans, you have the Jesuits, always doing bad stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, Francis, I think, is close to Jesuits. The Jesuits were not the same thing as liberation theology, but Jesuits were involved in infiltrating liberation theology. Liberation theology were allied with Marxist guerrilla groups against the CIA and against the Vatican, with priests that actually defrocked themselves and said, like, to hell with the corrupt structures of the church. That's not the same thing as the Jesuits. There's a wrong story out there that the Jesuits are liberation theology. No, they infiltrated in the same way that the deep state and Kamala Harris infiltrated these original esoteric black police officers unions. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have to think multidimensionally. Like, something can start off good, then it gets infiltrated, it gets derailed, it gets split. There's good ones and bad ones. Like, stop thinking that organizations are good. Organizations don't even exist. I mean, they're not human. The organizations exist in our mind. They might exist on paper and in our mind, but people exist. Intentions exist. Our souls exist. That's what exists. Okay, that's what exists. Organizations are a reality separate, epistemologically and ontologically from existence. Reality is a distinct, philosophically speaking, okay, epistemologically or even ontologically, organization and theory is a reality distinct from existence, okay? So,
yeah. Joaquin, could you please tell again when exactly, what year did the Vatican become a NATO asset?
Well, you had after World War II.
After World War II.
Yeah.
Right.
The Vatican had become an asset of the Third Reich, and after the destruction of Nazi Germany, there was a sort of Operation Paperclip, if you will, of the Vatican that transferred control of the Vatican from the Berlin to London, City of London, and Washington and New York. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's it on the coup attempt.